Sit-Down. I'm Paul Stilley, the Deputy Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Kingston. This is another episode of America Helped Me Build This series, where we spotlight Jamaican alumni of exchange programs in the United States and the incredible work they're doing right here at home. As part of Freedom 250 programming, we are continuing to highlight the partnerships, people, and opportunities that connect Jamaica and the United States in commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the United States independence. Today's conversation with a Fulbright Scholar is especially important because we're talking about mental health, leadership, and how exchange experiences can help shape meaningful change in communities. And before we begin, the Fulbright program, what is it? It is a U.S. government-sponsored international exchange program that offers merit-based grants for students, scholars, and professionals to study, teach, or research worldwide. If you are interested in applying, Fulbright applications are now open. Scan the QR code on the screen and submit your Fulbright application today. Applications close on Friday, May 29th. Also, if any online viewers have questions related to today's topic, please put them in the comments feed below, and we will try to get to them before the end of the show. So today, I'm very pleased to welcome Jhanille Brooks. Jhanille is a rehabilitation and mental health counselor, author, mental health advocate, and Fulbright Scholar with more than 16 years of experience in the mental health field. She's also the founder of the Jamaica Mental Health Advocacy Network and the author of Metamorphosis, a practical guide to mental and emotional transformation. Through her work, she continues to normalize conversations around mental health while advocating for stronger support systems and greater awareness in Jamaica. Jhanille, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
For those meeting you for the very first time, how would you describe the work that you do and its impact? And how did your Fulbright exchange help shape where you are today?
So I'm a counseling psychologist as well as a mental health advocate. I have been trying my best to open up the conversations about mental health in various spheres and various industries here in Jamaica. So like you said in my bio, I've been doing this for a while and I've had a varied experience in community-based programs, government programs, nonprofit. So I really have been trying to just spread the good news of mental health everywhere that I go. So very passionate about that. And I'm very grateful to have gone on the Fulbright experience. I think that really helped to shape my overall professional approach because of the differences that I was able to identify when I was away, and as well as the variety in my program. I think my program was very a nice mix of academia as well as practical things. So I'm very grateful to have experienced that.
That's great. And where did you go in the United States, Jhanille?
I was at the University of South Florida in Tampa.
Okay. From your experience there, I'm sure you can agree that mental health does not respect borders. What commonalities did you observe between both the United States and Jamaica, and how can both of our countries learn from each other?
So I think the main thing that stuck out for me when I was there was the difference in the level of stigma. So even in the States at the time, so that would have been like 2007 to 9, there was some stigma, but it was definitely noticeably less than in Jamaica. So I remember just overhearing a conversation with somebody like a Starbucks or something, and they're like, all right, catch you later, I'm going to therapy. And I was like, whoa, like in Jamaica at the time, and maybe even now, a lot of people wouldn't be so open and bold in saying that. So that's one difference that I had noticed. I noticed as well that there is the common theme of needing greater access to mental health care. So that existed and was common between the two countries at the time, and I would assume is probably still the same now, maybe to a lesser degree, but definitely access was something that I noted as well.
Very interesting. And it's interesting to see those similarities and differences between both countries. The experience, just in terms of the Fulbright Scholarship, the Fulbright program, what was that experience like for you, especially being immersed in U.S. approaches to mental health care, leadership, and community support systems?
Well, I will say that just, when I applied for the Fulbright, I don't think I understood the magnitude of what it was until I actually got there. And we had, big welcome gala and all of these different fetes and celebrations to welcome us and immerse us into the school and into the culture. So that was an eye opener for me. I was just like, whoa, okay, this is a big deal. Good job. But also, I think the ability to be involved in various activities in the school and through my program, I think that helped to widen my scope and how I viewed mental health at the time, because it was a requirement of the program that for like practicum and internship, we had to have a variety. It could not be the same kind of thing. And then also, I think the Fulbright program, I remember they invited us to an event in Rhode Island, I think it was, about US governance and getting us to understand how things worked up there, which was different from our cultures. And then we got to meet all of the Fulbright scholars who were for that year from around the world and learn how they had their government systems, and just variety of cultural exchanges got to happen there. So I think that was really good as well, because of course I would have been able to meet other mental health professionals from across the globe and get that input and insight as well.
That's really interesting. That's also great that you were able to go to Rhode Island. I have never had the chance to go there. Smallest state in the United States, I believe. You can drive across it in an hour or two. During this experience, can you tell us about one American lesson or perspective that you learned? And I'd also like to know that lesson from a personal perspective, from your time living in the United States, and also from a professional perspective in working in the U.S.
So from a professional standpoint, I think the systematic approach to mental health was something that was noteworthy as well. They had, I want to say, very organized systems in terms of the access, the referrals, the step-by-step approach, throughout treatment, from one is starting their process to discharge and follow up. I think that's something that I had not had the experience with before. So I think that was very good to have noticed as well. I think a personal takeaway was just the ability to meet a lot of people from different cultures, because even though USF is in Tampa and Tampa's in Florida and Florida is very close to Jamaica, like I still got the experience to meet many different people from many different cultures and realizing that even though there are differences, ultimately we're still the same. So I think it kind of opened my worldview and made me more compassionate and more accepting of people's differences.
That's wonderful. And Tampa is a very beautiful city in the United States. I'm sure you had a good Cuban sandwich while you were there?
I did.
Excellent. You have become a much needed voice in Jamaica that normalizes the conversation around mental health. Why is the work that you do now so important? And what would you say about your Fulbright experience helped to shape the approach?
I have to say that I feel like we have made a lot of progress as it relates to mental health in Jamaica. Even the stigma, the fact that we're having this conversation is a sign of that. So I'm encouraged by that, but I still think we have a little way to go. And I think the stigma reduction needs to now lead into improved and increased access, which is something that I am equally passionate about, because now that everyone is aware about mental health, we need people to go and get treated or go and get the care that they need. So I think widened access is still something that needs to be focused on, and that is something that I took note of in my time in the States as well, that even though not everyone might have been able to afford private care, there were community-based programs. There were, volunteer organizations that were doing a lot of mental health care, and I think I'd want to see more of that in Jamaica.
Mental health advocacy, and correct me if I'm wrong, it requires creating a space for open dialogue and for reducing the stigma, which you just mentioned. How did your time in the United States shape your broader understanding of civil society's role in driving that kind of social change? And how does that compare to civil society's role in Jamaica?
That's an interesting question. So I guess just a little background. So one of the places I had the opportunity to work while I was away was a mental health facility for juvenile offenders. So seeing that marrying of those two disciplines, as it were, I think that has always stuck with me. I think, yes, it was my first job, but I think it was probably my most impactful because, I like working with young people, but to be able to see that not only was there good care for juvenile offenders, but there was specific mental health. Like this was a program that was specifically mental health geared and oriented. So seeing the cross-sectional approach to mental health, I think is very important. I know that we do that. We have nonprofits on the ground and civil society who do mental health programs or might have a mental health component to their program, which I think is good. But I think we also need to strengthen that approach as well, because now we are seeing that mental health is not just, how we envisioned it before, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. Now we're seeing the importance of trauma and how trauma affects people. We're seeing, the study of the ACEs and how those adverse childhood experiences leads to not only mental health issues, but physical health issues. So I say now that we see how wide and varied mental health is, and it basically touches every part of our life, I think I'd like to see civil society organizations adopt more mental health focus in their programming.
I think that's a very good aspiration, and some much needed change for sure. When speaking about civil society, what did you learn about community organizing and grassroots advocacy during your experience in the United States doing Fulbright that you've been able to apply here?
I don't think I had very much experience with that, if I'm to be honest. But I do think just seeing the variety that I spoke about, I think that kind of ignited something in me to be able to say, let us be able to do something like this here in Jamaica in terms of stigma reduction programs. That's why I founded the Jamaica Mental Health Advocacy Network, because I saw that stark difference that I had mentioned before in the level of access and stigma and so on. But I didn't have very much civil society and advocacy experience there. But I think just the experience and seeing the difference is what kind of fueled my drive to get into this kind of work.
Thank you. How do you see U.S.-Jamaica collaboration evolving in the mental health space? What opportunities exist for our continued partnership? And how do you hope to see mental health cooperation grow between both of our countries?
So I think the collaboration on program initiatives, I think, is something that would be beneficial. So I know that the Fulbright program is there to give people the opportunity to study, but then you guys also have like grant opportunities and funding opportunities, of which my organization was able to be afforded a grant. That was the Women's History Initiative, I believe, in 2019. That was the name of the program. So we applied for a grant, and we were able to get it, and we were able to implement a mental health focused project in 2019. So I think more of those opportunities, even focusing specifically on mental health, like, May's Mental Health Awareness Month, offering some kind of grant funding for that, that's a potential idea that I'm just throwing out there. So I think more things like that. And I think having more Fulbright scholars come here to do research, to show the differences and the similarities between our countries as it relates to mental health. I think that's important as well.
Incredibly important. And that's the reason it's called an exchange program. It's not about just sending Jamaicans to the United States. It's also about bringing Americans to Jamaica. When you mentioned grants, any tips for anyone out there who is applying for a grant, what are some techniques that you've learned that would be useful for grant writing?
I think showing cross-sectionality is important. I know some of the grants may request specific things that show cross-cutting issues, but I think definitely showing as wide of a scope of how your proposed project will impact people, not just the direct beneficiaries, but maybe even the spillover effects and what you think might happen in another couple of years, so that it shows that, okay, even though this is just a 6-month project, it will have impact for maybe even 3 years. I think that part is important. That helps your grant proposal stand out a little bit.
It's very good advice. Any thoughts on the role that exchange programs like Fulbright play in addressing global mental health challenges? We've talked about Jamaica, we've talked about the United States, but thinking about this mental health issue on a more global level, how do you think that exchange programs like Fulbright can play a role?
I think once you're afforded the opportunity, anyone from any country, to study abroad, I think that is something that will definitely help your country of origin for sure. Just to have a variety of experience and the ability to make the partnerships, build networks. I still talk to some of the people I met, and that was like 17 years ago. I still talk to people. I was in contact with my professor until my academic advisor until he passed away, and he was still able to give me advice on things. And, so I think being able to make lasting networks and partnerships, I think that's something that globally everyone can benefit from, and that will enhance mental health, because it's a two-way street. So someone from another culture, when they come to the US to study, can say, okay, this is interesting, but this is how we do it here back home, and therefore it's a dual benefit.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned the networking. That is an enormous benefit of the exchange program, the alumni that are part of that program and the people that you meet. And speaking of that, I'm sure you met a lot of interesting people while in the United States. Without mentioning any names, what is there one person that kind of touched your experience there that really kind of helped change what you thought about the United States?
There's so many people. It's hard to name just one, but I definitely think my academic advisor, as I mentioned, him was integral in my experience. And I think it was also good for him too, because I don't think he had ever had the opportunity to teach someone from Jamaica. I'm sure there were Jamaicans in the program, but never usually in his class. So I think it was beneficial for him too. I was able to, sometimes bring him little food or snacks or, so I'm sure he appreciated that. So I would give him the nod for that. Yeah.
Did you let him try some of the Jamaican pepper sauce?
I don't remember, I don't remember the Scotch bonnets, but I know that I had brought him back stuff. Every time I came home, I'd bring him a little treat.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad you were able to share a bit of Jamaica with your academic advisor in the United States. If we could kind of just summarize in one or two sentences, what did your American exchange help you build?
It helped build my worldview in general, and as it relates to mental health, it gave me the opportunity to make lasting connections and friendships. It gave me the opportunity to, of course, pursue higher education, that I could come back and be of benefit and impact to my nation, which is something I really take pride in. So I think how I was cared for, I'll use that term, from the start of the process, even afterward, and being able to be involved in the alumni and something. It's really something I'm very grateful for, I have to say. Even just reflecting while I was on the drive here, I am very grateful to have had gone through this program.
And less grateful for Kingston traffic.
Wellington traffic, yes.
Before we wrap and go into some questions here, what advice can you give to our viewers who might be considering applying for the Fulbright program? Any advice?
Do it. I think you will not regret it. It's a wonderful experience. The staff here is very supportive. I've known them for several years, and they're wonderful people. So go for it. Go for it. You will not regret it at all.
Thank you. And before we end the program, we have just one quick question from Trisha on Facebook. How would you go about promoting it in schools, church, and university? And by it, I believe she means mental health.
Mental health?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think making these partnerships with these various organizations on the ground is important. Inviting yourself to be in these spaces. I chuckled because a lot of the early advocacy that I did involved me being enough, like as we say it in Jamaica, just being very forward and say, hey, you know, I would love to come to your church to make a presentation or whatever. But I think being able to taper the information to the specific site, whether it's school or church or whatever, to make it relevant to them, I think that's very important, to show them how mental health affects everybody, even, you know, the people in the church. You know, that's a cultural milestone, a safe haven for us. And even in the church, there's mental health issues. So, you know, just always showing how mental health pertains to any target group is important, and being enough and
Absolutely.
spreading the information, you know.
Jhanille, thank you so much for joining us today and for the work that you do to continue to support mental health and to strengthen the communities across Jamaica. It is a very important issue. And stories like yours, they remind us that exchange programs don't just shape careers, they shape communities, conversations, and they have real and lasting impact.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone who has tuned into our episode of Star-Spangled Banner Sit-Down. And once again, Fulbright applications are now open. Scan the QR code on the screen to learn more and submit your application before the deadline on Friday, May 29th. Be sure to also follow us on our U.S. Embassy social media pages at U.S. Embassy JA for future episodes and updates on U.S. exchange opportunities. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.